All right, so a couple things that I'm going to refer to last Wednesday. We did a nice, and it's in the mic, and it's a micro module, like Mike said. This is a micro module for everything, but it's really important. We really dig into the 10-point checklist, and I think there's a micro module 10-point checklist, and it's really an important piece of this whole thing. And as we said last time, starting off on the right foot, do all your research up front, because there's going to be a lot less headache, heartburn, aggravation, discontent, all the negative words on the back end if you make a mistake or you didn't do your due diligence. It's really an important thing that you really start out and go through that 10-point checklist, just like we did in the micro module, one at a time, and be judicious about it. If something isn't there, don't make it work just because you love the product. Part of Amazon is, I always say, sell what you love and sell what you understand, but don't sell what you love just because you love it. Obviously, if the numbers don't work, not everyone loves it as much as you.
Hey, it's Mike here, and we just launched version 7 of our Amazon training course, where we walk you through the process of how we sold, just in the last 30 days, our first 30 days, over 1,000 products with the brand new ranking strategies that we're now showing to the public. We've trained over 1,000 students, and last year alone we did over $3.2 million online. And if you go to my site, put your credit card away, enter just your first name and your email address, I'll immediately send you a series of free training videos that walk you through the process.
So find a happy medium. There's always something that you'll like that will make money. So this, what's funny is one statistic I don't know, and I'm going to find out what it is. I probably did know it at one point, but how many different products there are on Amazon? I'm gonna get an answer to that, because it's so many. And my point is that it's just to say that there's plenty of stuff to sell out there, and where people will constantly say that Amazon's saturated, and I'd argue that it's not at all saturated. And something, I'm not afraid of saturation, because of the things that we teach unequivocally will get you on the right path, right? If you follow the rules, if you follow the strategies, and these are going to be a few strategies that you should look at. And we dig deeper in these, and we'll continue to dig deeper and look at a lot of these strategies, or these bullets that we're going to talk about. Our strategy around them, or the way we view them, will change as Amazon changes. We talked about the strategy before. We just looked at the top keywords. We didn't take into consideration top competitors on the same page, and didn't take into consideration how many of the people would advertise for that keyword. We didn't take into consideration looking at the actual bids for the keywords before you even selected the product. We're now looking at the bids, the pay-per-click bids, and that's important today, because 6-8 months ago, pay-per-click was a way to get to page one, but velocity through giveaways or Facebook was the primary way, and pay-per-click was sort of a tertiary or secondary way. So it's really important that we keep you guys up to speed with the latest strategies, and so that each of these, the process won't change. It's the weight of what we do within those processes that might be altered. So, and then we figure that out on our own, selling our own stuff, plus all the people we deal with. So. All right. So one of the things we consistently talk about is the different products. I want to pull up Amazon real quick. If you guys give me a second. I had it all pulled up, and then I had to shut my computer down. So I'm gonna go with my favorite product, because I always love wireless chargers. And we're going to expand this, because Mike's going to yell at me because it's never big enough here. My screen's always small. It'll get
the problem you always have, Sam.
I can't hear you. Did you say something? It's all scratchy up here.
Your screen. Come on.
G-rated. G-rated.
I don't know who went G-rated here. You better mark that time down, Mike. 9:41. I'll have you edit in a few words to change what he said.
I'm gonna edit in the watermelon slicer anyway, so we're all good.
Oh. Wait till we do this during the day. I'm gonna just kill you guys because I want to be on my game. You guys got me at a disadvantage. All right, so we talked about this. We talk about this when we go through the 10-point checklist, and this is why I'm going to continue to do this because it's consistent with things we've showed. But one of the first things is I'm not going to go into how to find a keyword. We've already done that. We know the top keyword is wireless charger, and one of the things I like to talk about is competition. And when we do the search and we look at this keyword, we know how many competitors are out there. And when we see the number of competitors, and we'll go and I'll show you as we look at the trends and we look at the competitors, what that looks like. But right here, you can see right away, remember we always track how many are on a page, but it doesn't matter because when we do the analysis, the top 10 analysis, we always just look at 16, even if there are 48 on a page or whatever. And look at this. For this keyword, there are 90,000 products that rank for the keyword wireless charger. That's ridiculous. Divide that by 16, right? I mean, it's funny because we always say that 99% of the people never make it to the first page. So do that math. What's 16 divided by 90,000? It's a fraction of a percent, right? So when we say that, we really mean that. And this is a perfect example. Being on the first page in the top 16 of a keyword that gets 90,000, has 90,000 competitors is absolutely insane. But that's the strategy, and that's what we got to do. And this definitely wouldn't be a keyword you would go after right out of the gate. But it's the keyword you would use primarily to determine the competition, because this is going to be the one everyone's competing against. Determine the volatility of the product, the seasonality, and the pricing points, and definitely obviously the reviews. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about competition. We're going to talk about I want to touch on pricing strategy slightly. We do that in a deep dive, but we'll talk on it slightly because this is the top keyword. And then we're going to talk about reviews. And the reviews I will ultimately things that are the most important as we go forward. So, we know this is a big keyword. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do an analysis on this. And I'm going to fast forward because I did this last week already. So what we did was we take the top 4 competitors, we run this report, and we take the top 4 competitors, and we run them through Cerebro. Well, it's just we've done this, I don't want to belabor it. And we're going to rerun this because we already did it. And I wanted to just show you what I'm talking about here. Oh, that didn't work. See? Everything's going slow. Yep. All right, so this is the one we had the 3 competitors. And remember, we did the advanced search filters, so we only wanted to see the keywords where all 3 competitors were on page 1 because those are the keywords that matter. And then we sorted by search volume and so on and so forth. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight are a couple other columns. So we know the search volume is by itself not the guiding light. It is a data point. We all talk about this. There's 4 or 5 data points now that we have to look at. And the reality is if one data point is slightly askew, say you're looking at 5 and one isn't perfect and there may be some noise in it, well, you got 4 others to back it up. And so you're going to definitely still be on the right path versus before, and that's okay. Before this worked, right? Before just looking at search volume was what worked. Now there's so many other variables because Amazon's looking at things differently. They're looking at sellers differently. They're looking at customers differently. They're looking at product differently. They're looking at pricing differently. They're looking at categories differently. So you need to incorporate many more data points. But you can see here, what I showed you was the 90,000 because I think that's all Amazon will list up to a certain number of pages. But if you look at wireless charger, there's actually over 200,000 competing products. And you can see the number of the competition. So when you start looking at what keywords to look for, well, it's all about, I always say it's an art more than a science, and there's both of it in there, right? So you're looking at it and you're like, okay, lots of searches, this is a brand name, so that's why it shows such a low competition. So you want to try to find out high search volume, lower competition than the rest, and that's going to end up evolving into a keyword strategy that will get you the budgeted keyword or the top keywords or what have you. And it's really important. And then with that, you're going to start looking at things like the number of reviews that are for that particular keyword. And if you look at right here, it says sponsored rank average and sponsored rank count. The different advertising rankings and competition, and that's something that is really, really helpful as well. But for the sake of this discussion, we're going to talk about competition. And wireless charger iPhone X, that was always my keyword. That was my go-to keyword. I was always in the top 5 when I was selling this specific product. And even though there were 80,000, I was fine with it. I was very successful with that wireless charging pad. You can see the competition gets a little bit a little bit better. And remember when we talked about this in the deep dive about the 8-day giveaway, this number has grown like exponentially. If you looked at this, because I did, and because I sold the product, this daily giveaway, and this is an aggregate of 8 days. So, this is like what, 100 a day. It was maybe 10 a day, because what's happened is the giveaways have been so the value of them are so degraded compared to a full price pay-per-click sale or a high or low discount Facebook sale. So what you're seeing are these giveaways. Sometimes it's a 1 to 5, 1 to 10 ratio. So for every 10 giveaways equals a full price sale. So that's why we're always saying, okay, in the workbook we have the calculator. It says, what's the cost? Sometimes we're like, well, pay-per-click's killing me. I'm spending $10 a hit or whatever. Well, I'm like, well, what's the cost to give away 10 units? So there is a point that pay-per-click ends up being cheaper, but the reality is these numbers look crazy now, and I don't look at these as a prime data point anymore. I look at them as kind of a guideline. I know that, okay, the QI wireless charger is going to be less giveaways than the wireless charging pad, right? Not necessarily that I have to give that number away. I need that velocity to give it away, but it's showing me that it's going to take a little less to get on the first page. But you don't even need that number, because you can just make that assumption based on the fact that there's fewer competitors. So it's just really important that you look at this data and you review it and understand what it all means, and you come up with the keywords. But this is a good way to see how competitive they are. And don't be afraid about this stuff. Just understand it and know it, and be able to comprehend it as you go forward. So that's kind of a little bit of information on competition and how to really look at the competition. But I don't want people are still, I don't know if they're not following us or paying attention to some of the new data we're putting out there. We have been for months, but this number, I mean, look at this. This was not 3,100 units in an 8-day period. It was never that. That's like ridiculous. The numbers have gone up so high. So just realize that that's because of the weight now that Amazon's giving to these low-priced giveaways. And you're getting the velocity, but you're not getting the same staying power as you would. And that's why you've seen our focus so much. I mean, I would say we're 80% focused on pay-per-click right now, because that's getting the biggest bang for the buck, because that's getting a definitive search for your keyword. It's getting a definitive selection of your product and the definitive purchase of your product. So that's the trifecta. The only thing you could do better than that is bring someone in from the outside, and that gives you the 4 things that Amazon wants. So that's why Facebook is a big part of it as well. But typically you have to give a discount, and that may offset that outside traffic. So pay-per-click right now, and by the way, if you think about it logically, pay-per-click we're seeing everyone give this stuff away. They weren't making the commission that they should have made, and then they're sitting there saying, well, I mean, if we make people go through pay-per-click, it's a win-win-win. Not only are people selling the stuff at full price, but we're making money every time someone clicks on that ad. So it, obviously makes sense from a business perspective why they're doing that.
Hey, it's Mike here, and we just launched version 7 of our Amazon training course, where we walk you through the process of how we sold just in the last 30 days, our first 30 days, over 1,000 products with the brand new ranking strategies that we're now showing to the public. We've trained over 1,000 students, and last year alone we did over $3.2 million online. And if you go to my site, put your credit card away, enter just your first name and your email address, I'll immediately send you a series of free training videos that walk you through the process.
Now, when you have these products, so that was a little bit of competitors. I want to talk briefly about seasonality and, like the unicorn and stuff like that we were talking about. And that, that's a seasonal product. But you should know the seasonality of a product way before you even buy it. And it's just absolutely critical. Let's just take, so you'd go and I'm going to tell you the easiest way to look at seasonality. So you find you've identified the top keyword. This is, you don't do the research typically on your budgeted keyword when you start looking for seasonality, when you start looking at these reviews. You take the top keyword because that's going to have the best competitors, the toughest competitors, the people with the most sales, the most reviews, and they're going to have a longer history, which is going to give you some information on the business. So what I do is I find, I go to the top keywords, which in this case we know is wireless charger. I then sort by revenue, and typically the person with the highest revenue will have the most reviews. And in this case, not necessarily, if that's not the case, then I'll sort by review count. The reason I want a high review count, and we're going to do two things with reviews right now. The more reviews, the longer they've been in business typically, because there's a percentage, right? And there's one of these columns that actually tells you the review percentage. And the percentage in the wireless charging category, for every, I don't know, for every 15 or 20 purchases, you might get a review. And that's going to be the same for the whole category pretty much. So if somebody has 3,000 or 5,000 reviews, they will have been in business longer than anyone else on this page, unless you have people like stuff in the review box. I mean, you look at the velocities of the different reviews over the last 30 days. These guys got 761. That's very sketchy. These are good numbers to look at because you can see who's stuff in the box. Not that these guys need to, even though they're selling 200,000, there's no way that they earned 700. You get this guy with 1,800 reviews and 200,000 in revenue, about the same as this guy. He got 26. This guy got 761. I mean, and by the way, Amazon knows this. Their data shows this, that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. So my guess is they really needed to boost this. It'd be interesting to see what their review, what their ranking was from a percentage basis prior to 30 days ago. But anyways, my point is when I start to do the analysis on seasonality, I typically take the folks with the greatest number of reviews. So let's go ahead and look at this guy. It's interesting. I don't show the his graph there, but let's look at this one though, where there is a graph, and just so you can get the idea what I'm talking about. So we're looking for seasonality now. We're looking to see, are there seasons for this product? Not only that, when is the best time to get in the market for the product, and usually look for a low point. So when you have a vendor or a competitor that's been in business for a while, I always just take all time, right? Let's just see. Well, first see when they went into business. So they've been in business for just over a year and a month, and we see a big dip here. Now, what's interesting about this is it's such a big dip. I would argue that it potentially is a product specific dip. It's so sudden and kind of abrupt, and it's short, that I would think that it's and we're going to double check that against another product. But you can see pretty much, well, one of the first things you see is over time, this product's a good product. You can see the trend line, which is this solid line here, upticks year over year. So the product's good. And most of the sales are above the trend line, which tells you that, it's those are anything above the trend line is the sort of the high points, right? The peak points. And when you're starting to look at seasonality or when to possibly enter a market, you want to start looking at the things below the trend line, because that's going to be indicative of a good point to enter. And why we want to try to enter on a low point or outside of any kind of high season, 6 weeks away from any high season, is because that's the easiest time to get that keyword to the first page. It's the least expensive and the least competitive. So you can spend a little more on your pay-per-click and get to the first page. It may be a third, maybe a pay-per-click for that keyword's $2 versus $12. And it may allow you, because remember when we do the analysis, we're going to look at the different bids. It may allow you to actually bid and take a more competitive keyword because it's a low point, right? So maybe it's a keyword that on some of the high points, it's just, you can't afford it. And then it's at a low point, you may be able to afford it, get you to the first page and a better keyword. And by the time the season hits and things are going strong, you're on page one, you're gaining traction, you solidified your position. So this is what I use this for. But when I see these big sudden drops, especially when the product is very consistent above the trend line, something tells me there's something going on here with this particular product. So I'll look at another one. I'll go and take, was this the one I just looked? No, that's a Samsung, so that's going to be interesting. Let's look at this guy. Now they've only been in business. They've been in business about the same amount of time. Let's go back a year, and now you can see its trend line's still up. Now they have these abnormally high spikes, and these seem to be around the holidays. Back to school, which is a big product for back to school. Also a big product this time was when the iPhone came out, and the iPhones actually had the QI technology, so that's a big part of that in 18. And you can see in 19, the trend stayed above the line, but they didn't have that big drop like the other one. So you got to put the stuff together. And honestly, so for me, I look at this product, trend line's up, 90% of the volume is over the trend line. There's really very little seasonality. The biggest seasonality this product has had is since Christmas. And so which would tell me that, it may be an opportunity to see where this product's going. Now, they spiked up, and, there was definitely something going on here as far as maybe they released a new product. But for me, the takeaway here is there's really not a lot of seasonality in this product. If you had to get into it next year, say, or whatever, obviously after Christmas would be a good time to get into it. But this isn't a product that I'm gonna fret over when to get into, because there's not enough seasonality for me to say that. It's a product I would get into it when I do and just sell it and go from there. But the thing you like about this product is look at the trend line on both of these guys is in the right direction year over year. Okay, so with that, I would always then go to, so that gives you kind of an idea of seasonality, how to interpret it, what to do with it, and stuff like that. Now, we would go to, the next thing I want to learn about is I want to understand what people don't like about the product. And we talked briefly about this, but I want to dig into it a little bit deeper. And so this product has 2,700 reviews. They get a 4-star rating. And why is it that they have a 4-star rating? So we're going to go into the product, and there's this website, and it's free. I mean, it's amazing. It's called, we can put it in the chat box, thereviewindex.com, right? Thereviewindex.com. And what you do is you have the product up on Amazon, and
Sam, I'll put it in there right now.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm clocking here anyways.
Yeah.
So with the product page up, you just click on the R, and you'll get all the reviews aggregated to a like a summary of, okay, all these reviews are going to have to do with charging. All these reviews are going to have to do with product reliability. All these reviews are going to have to do with battery life. All these reviews are going to have to be do with device compatibility. So what this does for me is I haven't bought my product yet. So I'm like, all right, how can I differentiate? This guy is selling a ton. He's one of the biggest sellers, has a ton. He's been in business for, a year and a half or whatever. He's got a ton of sales, ton of reviews. So I can learn something from this person. There's 1,000 reviews aggregated here, for this particular, product, and that's like a lot. So the first thing I do is go to the negatives. I want to see what people don't like about it, right? This particular does 3 months, it doesn't charge. Pretty disappointing. You would dig into this, right? Doesn't charge it through the night. Some of these things look very like quality related. So this is one of the products, and I know it because I am very familiar with them, that you have to get many, many samples because they are funky. And a lot of people don't understand what if you dug into this, you're going to realize that people put the thickest, fattest cases on their phones and then think this is going to go through it and charge it. And so what you'll see here is that's going to be a big part of that, which there's not much you can do to fix that from a product quality perspective, but it's something you can do to explain it when you write your listing. It's also a great thing. Remember we talked about putting videos in one of the micro modules on your product. This is a great video. What cases do work? What cases don't work? And you'll avoid, before they buy it, you'll avoid a negative review. So you'll dig into that and find out that's the biggest problem. Then you'd go to product reliability. It lasted 30 days, garbage, worked for a few months, stopped. I mean, I got one in China that I've literally tested it, oh my God, for 6 months. And the thing is amazing. They're actually upgraded that version. I got another one coming. The flat ones are horrible. If anyone gets into wireless chargers, do not buy the lay flat ones. They're horrible. They're just horrible. But they sell a lot because they're cheap. You can get these things for $1.90 or something crazy like that. And then people are selling them for 12 bucks, 16 bucks, 20 bucks, whatever. But they're not reliable. The quality is bad, and you got to really test them. But you'll dig into this and you'll find out, okay, well, it stopped after a few months. So you're going to want to make sure this may not be something you can quantify for your customers, but it's something as a buyer, you got to get samples and test it out for a little while. Battery life. These are just sort of the technical aspects of them. And then you're going to see some of these other things you'll dig into and figure out, okay, what can I do to improve the product? One of the big things is you're going to see these products typically come with the shortest cords you've ever seen. The ones I sold would come for what they give you with it. It was probably 2 inches long, and it was the shortest cable. Like you couldn't plug it into anything. It was the most ridiculous thing. So that to me is a huge bundling option. This is something you would bundle with the 3-pack or one of those 3. A high. You get one of these chargers that have high speed rates, and you'd get a high-speed cable. It's a great bundling item, and you could identify that people typically get a short cord, but you're going to give 6 feet cords, and it's going to be a high speed cord. It's going to get you better charging, because you've seen and already seen in some of these, I've seen it, that charging is slow. It takes the whole night to charge. So you'll see a lot of that, and you'll keep digging into this. The point of this whole thing is you'll dig through this. And in our workbook, there's actually a sheet. Let me see if I have it. Let me see if I have it here. If I can pull it up really quick. But the sheet has the goods, positives, and the negatives, right? And what's positive, what's negative, and you can make a list of those things. So as you're talking to your manufacturer or you're writing the listing, you know what things to point out. This is absolute, and then you also want to start looking at what people liked about it. Just as important as what people don't like about it, because you want to make sure the product has on it what everyone loved about the other product, and so you want the best of both worlds. And I see people skim through this, and you shouldn't. You should really, really read people's reviews, because those are going to be your reviews. And to the extent that you can make your product, keep the things that people like, and try to fix and improve the things people didn't like. Or at the other side of the coin is make sure your product is descriptive enough that a the description takes a negative review out of the way, because when someone's disappointed is when they leave a negative review. If you gave them a tiny 2 or 3 inch cord and didn't tell them that you were going to give them that, they're going to be mad. They're going to leave you a negative review. So this is an opportunity to come up with, here are things that I think I could tell them, put in a video, put in the description, or even put on the picture that would help them avoid being angry with me. And so knowing what people like and don't like are equally as important. And so that's what I had, Mike. I don't know, I'm sure you've been answering questions. If there aren't any more, I will move forward.
I've really felt like since I've joined, this is one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
From August 2nd to September 2nd, I generated $15,000 in sales.
I did about 6K one day.
We set a goal of 300 sales in the first 2 weeks, and we met that in 8 days.
Our first 12, 13 days, we've averaged just over $1,000 per day in revenue.
Right now I've got 74 5-star reviews, bestseller ranks at 29, and I've sold in 45 days almost 500 units.
We are moving about 15 to 20 units per day right now.
We were #1 new release on Amazon within 24 hours.
So the last 12 months would have been in July. I reached I guess 6 figures.
I've seen the result and I've been very impressed.
Today actually is ironic that we're making this video because we hit our biggest numbers sales organically.
We still made 150% on our investment.
By far, the level of accountability you guys bring and support to your team it's uncanny.
What you guys are teaching us changed my life.
Just mind-blowing and very helpful in helping us launch our products.
We were able to create an entire business from scratch with no knowledge before, really, of how to sell on Amazon.
It gave us basically a roadmap to get involved in e-commerce without having to reinvent a wheel.
If I didn't have this training to follow, I'm sure it would be very difficult for me to research everything and to come up with a process that would work.
The way Mike and Matt teach is really a foolproof method.
The quality and integrity of the program is amazing. The clarity of instruction, and the detail of instruction is really easy to follow along.
I've been amazed with how robust and how much information they have in their program.
I get so much information from the training videos, and it's incredible.
Love the modules that I can listen to them again and again.
The steps that are laid out are very much succinct and something that you can follow.
It really is good to just consistently go over and over and over the same the basics in order to get your business up and running.
Everything that you've taught me so far has been useful. I've used a number of it both in this side business and also at my day job.
You guys been helping me out with the Voxer talks, the live training videos that you guys have been sending me.
Learning that this even exists, learning the process and how to be successful has really been great.
I like how the information can be applied to other businesses, other online ventures that you might want to do.
We love this business for the business model.
I'm just so excited to be selling online and making money in a way that I never thought I would.
I'm just excited to get this started.
If you want free time and you know how this passive income system can work, I think you'll see the same thing.
Ultimately, we're into the things that I love, and for me personally, that's my family.
I'm just grateful for you guys. I feel like you're super positive.
One of the things that you guys do is set the tone for giving everything you've got.
You go above and beyond.
They aim to over-deliver. They don't need to do as much as they do, but they do it anyway.
Mike and Matt are just regular people. Successful, but willing to share the knowledge and help us become successful too.